Gotta ask you about Kamala Harris. How you feel about her?
She's a piece of. I was in California. She lacked professional competence, and she worked on it by hiking up her hemline when she needed influence rather than researching. I was out in California for 15 years doing my show when she was at her peak, and she had a reputation amongst the trial lawyers of being lazy. She just hike her skirt up and try to flirt, and she wasn't that good in the courtroom, if not pretty bad in the courtroom.
So ever since Kamala Harris was tapped by Joe Biden to become the nominee for the Democratic Party, she has enjoyed quite a honeymoon period. I mean, you're seeing all of these stories just raving about Kamala Harris, about who she is, that she's a black woman, that she is a woman that is qualified. You're hearing about all of these things, and black people are hopping on these Zoom calls, white people are hopping on these Zoom calls, white women hopping on these Zoom calls, white men hopping on these Zoom calls. They have the most racially segregated Zoom calls I've ever seen. But yet, if this would have happened on the conservative side, you would have heard all kind of complaints about racial discrimination. Why are you just having a Zoom call with white men? Why are you just having a Zoom call with white women? You can't have black people on your Zoom call? But because they're Democrats, they get away with it. Well, one person who knows Kamala Harris very well is Judge Joe Brown. You know Judge Joe Brown. Judge Brown from his show. Well, he has some things to say about Kamala Harris that I'm sure she would not like at all. The judge went in on Kamala Harris.
So after that, they got together and got her finance and got everything organized and made the connections for her, and she got elected to U.S. Senator. Willie Brown made the initial contacts and arrangements so she could get elected as district attorney for San Francisco. She didn't do a very good job. She had a reputation for giving out the stiffest sentences in the United States of America for simple possession of marijuana in San Francisco, for God's sakes. But it was only to young black men. She's not a parent, never had any children, but she went off on this campaign to lock parents up, some of whom actually were shown to have dropped their children off at the school, but they played hooky, so she was putting them in jail.
I've heard of that case. I've heard about how hard Kamala Harris was on single parents, on parents. I heard about this case of Kamala Harris being hard on this single black woman who was a parent of a special needs child. See, those are the things that you don't hear about in the media because the media is not doing their job. See, actually, you know what? The media is doing their job. The media is the propaganda arm of the Democratic Party. Just like you have the church plants who are there in the black community to sabotage the black community, to keep them voting democratically. You have the media there to propagate, to propagandize for the Democrats, to make sure that the masses vote for the Democratic Party. You gotta understand something. The liberals and the Marxists have taken over a lot of the different institutions in America. And therefore, they have a lot of people who are under their payroll or have the same ideology as them in these different positions. The media is one of them. So therefore, you're going to see all the positive press that you can to put this thought in your mind that Kamala Harris has so much momentum that you have to vote for her. After all, it's going to be historic. She's going to be the first black woman president. That is very historic, right?
I know my in-laws, now late in-laws because they're dead, and their fine daughter that I was married to, we were divorced. She got a whole lot of money, but anyway, out of me. What wound up happening was there was a liquor store they like to patronize on the way home, and it was a good liquor store, but it got held up a lot, so Kamala's solution was not go get the crooks, but close down the liquor store so nobody would be troubled by it. See, that kind of philosophy, or you've got a serial killer who's got 6 victims, and the families are writing protest letters to her, not hurry up and do something, not why are you giving the guy such a light deal, is why don't you let this man plead guilty to life without parole instead of delaying it for 7 years trying to make political hay out of it. I was caught up in a thing where this woman who was supposed to be a financial specialist wound up embezzling a lot, $1.5 million from me, about 15 million from some other black celebrities. And most of it was in the San Francisco area, not LA where I was. She consolidated the cases up there in San Francisco, took 5 years to resolve it, let her plead out not the $15 million of embezzlement, but $35,000. The sentence was 5 years in the penitentiary, 4.5 years suspended, 5 years probation. The woman wound up sitting on a bench outside Sybil Branch, which is the women's detention facility in LA County, for 5.5 hours. That's all the time she served, made no restitution. And la-di-da, I'm through with it now, I don't care, on her behalf. Like, where's our money? You know, what did you do here? You didn't even consult with us. You did this on a surprise basis. That's $15 million gone. What happened? It's the kind of thing she would do, see. So it's like, that was not a good professional performance. And then she was everybody's favorite Hindu Indian prosecutor and attorney general and senator, and now she becomes black. But, you know, I met her daddy, fine gentleman, Professor Harris. And the problem with her being black is Professor Harris says he's Caucasian, mixed Irish and Hindu. He doesn't have any black ancestors, but his Irish ancestors owned a lot of slaves in Jamaica and had them to work on plantation. So if mama is on the birth certificate listed as a Caucasian, daddy says he's a Caucasian Hindu and has no black ancestors, how did she get to be black? Go over there, you see people from Hong Kong, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, Kenya, South Africa, you name it. It's part of the British Commonwealth, and nobody needed a passport, and you could just go in and out. So it's not unusual. You're not black just because you are from Jamaica, and you have a whole lot of white people that never left, and their ancestors owned a lot of slaves.
That is so true. You have a lot of people that are white that are from South Africa. I have friends of mine that I know, they're from South Africa. They're blonde hair, blue eyes. But if you ask them, were they Africans? Yes, they were. So just because somebody's from somewhere that you think is full of black people, that's not the case. As the judge said, Jamaica was a colony of Britain, just like the Bahamas. So you can have white people who are from the Bahamas, but you may think that they are Bahamian, but they are Bahamian, but they're not dark skinned. And so therefore, just because Kamala's dad was Jamaican doesn't mean that he was black. But that's why they play on the ignorance of black people, because they think you are so stupid that they say that her father's from Jamaica. Automatically you assume that she's black and her skin's brown like mine. Oh man, she gotta be black. Well, my wife is Pakistani and her skin is brown like mine. Would you call her black? Some people do, but she's not. She's Pakistani. See, that's why we can't get so caught up in skin and surface features, because we're all one race. We're all part of the human race. We have different ethnicities, and ethnicities have mixed throughout the generations. So this whole black thing that was set up here in America just to put people in different buckets to control the populace, for the rich people to control the populace, to make sure that black people weren't able to get access to certain things, people with darker skin weren't able to get access to certain things. That's the reason this whole black system was set up. But people don't understand that. They're ignorant to this fact. And it's sad to see that. And especially people who call themselves Christians. Because a person looks like them, they're going to vote for this person. That's the sole reason they're going to vote for her. Not her policies, not what she plans to do if she's elected president. It's solely because they can identify with her. That's a sad, sad reason to vote for somebody.
She wants to be chief administrative officer, but she's never been the boss over anything. She was nominally with the Attorney General's office, but you've got all of these egos with all of these people with doctorate of laws who've taken the bar exam, and every one of them in there could run against you in an election and be your boss, and is as qualified technically as you are to run the place. So she's never been the boss in charge of something where she dictated, because what she did in San Francisco and when she got over California is she essentially had somebody else doing it, and she was just a political figurehead. So when you come into this situation here, Putin, Russia, Ukraine, those are serious things. They have a lot of nukes. You've got Xi Jinping, and China's got one hell of a huge army, air force, nukes, computer systems, and so on. What is your experience in international diplomacy? You got made the representative of the country to handle the foreign affairs. You failed so badly they yanked you out when you were actually the boss in charge. The borders are. You just complete abject failure to that. Your only appearance down there was to sit in a chair in the desert while they interviewed you, trying to be cute, flashing your pearls, and you didn't do your job. So you're talking now about you want to legitimize 20 million aliens who've come in here and see that they get fast-tracked so they can vote and become part of the whole process. What are you doing?
As you heard the judge say, Kamala Harris has failed up. I'm going to tell you about some of the policies that Kamala Harris supports. She supports the Equality Act. You know what that essentially says? It says that Christians may be locked up and put in jail or muzzled for standing up for biblical values, like myself, that they will try to muzzle us, try to silence us for solely speaking out against the LGBTQ and same-sex marriage by standing firm on our belief that marriage is between a man and a woman. It was God's institution. She supports the Equality Act. She supports abortion up until giving birth. She supports that. She does. And you know how much abortion has harmed the black community? 20 million babies have been murdered since Roe v. Wade. You understand? She supports that. She's all about transgenderism. She's all about taking children from you and sending them to these facilities. She's all about not letting the parents know what their children are doing. She's all about that. Kamala Harris is all about letting these illegals continue to flow in and then making them citizens and then giving them the right to vote. The ones that are taking your resources. Kamala Harris is about that. Kamala Harris is a part of the administration that led to this high inflation that's causing you to struggle to buy food. Kamala Harris is all about that. See, she's about all those things. You're not going to hear about that, though, in the media, because the media is the propaganda arm for the Democratic Party, for the liberal, the Marxists, and the communists. See, Kamala Harris is a prop. They're going to use her to continue to push the things that they want to do to transform this nation, to make you and I victims. But we're not victims. We are empowered for greatness.